Hello, everyone. This is Tricia.
This is Tessa.
And welcome to Strong
Female Lead.
Yes!
Yay. That was close. That time was pretty close.
Okay, right? One more time. Strong female.
Wait, that's why I got confused. I was like, are you counting strong female lead, or are you counting me at 1, 2, 3 strong female lead? Or the first time I did strong female lead.
You know what? I think that's better. I think that's better rather than coming in on 3. So ready?
Strong female lead.
Yes.
That was pretty good, That was pretty good.
Doing this, we're
right here. We're like almost there.
Okay, but we're going to get it someday where we're going to be in unison and you're actually going to only hear one voice.
Yeah, we will be speaking as your Lord and Savior from our mountaintop of the Church of SFL to our parishioners.
Latter-day SFL, which I have to say, it didn't even occur to me what latter-day really meant, and I haven't looked it up, except that I did recently watch like Death of a Mormon or Killing in the Mormons or whatever is on Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
It's a new docuseries. It's just 3 episodes. It's about a guy forging records. It's amazing. Sorry, it's a spoiler, but forging Mormon records and it leading into murder. But then it got me thinking, and I've seen the Book of Mormon also, like the play. And then I thought, I never even thought about Latter-day Saints. That just means later day saints, right? Like just living saints?
Yeah.
Okay.
New saints.
I didn't
Us
look
modern
it up,
saints.
but I like latter-day SFLs. Like there were prior day.
There were.
Like
there were the original SFLs, your Harriet Tubmans, your Joan of Arc, and now us, latter day.
Well,
because we're on the same level as those women. It's them and us.
That's what I was getting at. I'm like, who are our 4 sisters, our 4 mothers?
Yeah, Jane Addams, Aretha Franklin, because she's amazing, Yester Women.
Billie Holiday.
Billie Holiday. Great movie, guys. Watch that on Netflix.
Oh, I know. That one was so good. Okay, so Hollywood has been telling us what is and isn't a strong female lead for as long as we can remember. But on this podcast, we question whether they get it right. And we look at the portrayal of female characters in movies and television to create a social dialogue about representation of women in media. And yes, we do pepper that with, just our hot takes, really. And the fact that now we've learned that we are standing on the shoulders of our 4 mothers. So I'd like to call them.
I like to say standing on the boobs or leaning on the teats of our 4 mothers.
Standing on the boobs? Like how?
Yeah. Just like I don't know. Just like shoulder, like, you get it.
Are they comfortable?
Yeah, they're squishy.
No, are they comfortable for the people that were standing on?
Oh, no. Well, they had uncomfortable lives, so.
They had what?
Uncomfortable lives.
Oh, I thought you said they had comfortable lives. I'm like, I don't think so.
No.
I'm going to venture out there and say Harriet Tubman's life was not particularly comfortable.
I think it ended well.
I mean, yeah, she's here with us. Harriet Tubman picked the movie that we're actually covering right now. She spoke to me and she said that a really important film to cover on the podcast would be The Invitation. No, she did not. And you know why? Because she wouldn't give a shit about this movie, because to her, these people probably would not have real problems compared to what she was handling.
No, but she probably could have predicted the ending. She
could have definitely predicted the ending. And I'm interested to hear how you think this measured up in terms of tropes, or any sort of, you know, horror story tropes. But so, okay, we're talking about The Invitation. It's a 2015 American horror film, and it stars a bunch of people that I really didn't know who they were, except Tammy Blanchard looked very familiar to me. But the other people in it are Logan Marshall Green, Michael Heisman, it's not Heisman, Huisman, and oh boy, you know what? I don't know anyone else's name, to be quite honest. The one
John
guy,
Carroll Lynch, Pruitt, he looks very familiar. I feel like he plays
yes,
menacing characters a lot.
you are totally right. Yes,
Yeah.
he was the one other person I recognized in the group. And I know Michael. Michael is from, he was in that show Nashville.
Oh,
With, oh goodness.
the redhead.
Nashville had Connie Britton. Was that who was in it? Yeah.
Connie Britton, yeah.
And Hayden Panettiere. He was in it, but he wasn't like a real big character. But I think he's very, very attractive, only to be shut out by my attraction to Logan Marshall Green, where I was like, wowza. It's like, first of all,
it's
Tammy
not
has a
Tom
type.
Hardy. I guess kept calling him not Tom Hardy because he's not, but he's close, but he's not.
He was just beautiful. And for him to upstage, oh, is it Michael? I'm not even saying his name correctly. It's spelled, it might be Michelle, Michiel, Mikel. Oh boy. Well, anyways, it has, two men that look somewhat similar-ish, like they could be brothers. And so that's who's in it. Basically what happens is Logan Marshall Green's character, his name is Will, and he responds to an invitation from his ex-wife to a dinner party at her home in Los Angeles with her new husband, David. He brings his girlfriend to the dinner party, and there at the dinner party, just a casual night in, he relives the trauma of their child's death, the child he had with Tammy, and becomes suspicious that his ex-wife has ulterior motives for inviting him. So, yeah, so basically this turns into a full-on horror movie, and he responds to an invitation, but then the larger piece, or the larger theme of this is, it's not just an invitation to a dinner party, it's an invitation to what he thinks at some point is to be a part of a cult, but then really it's like participation in the cult's suicide pact, but unwillingly. So they're not even like really being invited to become a part of the cult. I mean, maybe if they all just agreed, ooh, yeah, let's all drink this, suicide looks great, but like that's not what it was. It seemed like they were invited so that the couple could have them die with them together as part of their like awakening or passing over. That sounds a little convoluted, and it really isn't a difficult movie to follow, but just that one theme where I'm like, so you're not even asking them, they don't even have time to become a member. You're just going to kill them that same night. like they don't even get to like enjoy any piece of this cult. So it's basically a slow burn. You're invited to dinner. The dinner's a little strange. It's a group of old friends. All these old friends were around. Most of them were around at the time of the death of the child, because it happened at like a gathering of all of them 2+ years ago. So they're getting together for the first time since the death. So they've all suffered some grief, except for a few outliers were not there. And it was 2 people that were invited by the husband and wife, and then also Will's girlfriend. So Will's girlfriend is truly the only person who has nothing to do with any piece of this. And it's a weird little dinner at first, like, we're all together. The ex-wife is a little bit sexual, like towards Will, like she just kind of carries herself that way. And then they show him a video, and then they start talking about this group that helped them in Mexico, and they've all suffered grief, and then they want to talk about it. And then, guys, it just gets weirder and weirder. And it really is like a third act action movie, meaning like everything explodes in the last 30 minutes. And the first hour is just lots of stairs and walking from room to room. Just like lots of weirdness. So tell me, Tessa, I mean, I think I kind of butchered that. I did not practice at all what the synopsis would be, but
it's hard to, there's so many details in a suspense movie. It's hard to succinctly get it down because if you haven't already seen it, you need to be, paying pretty close attention in order to pick up on all these little like cues that that Will's character is picking up on as well, in order to like really the game that's being played between the audience and the film is how reliable is Will as the narrator, because he's both processing grief and he's suspicious of everyone in the room. So it's like it's a whodunit, but nothing has happened yet. And so if you could be like, at any murder mystery party, like before the murder, that is the the timeline of this movie. Like something's off. There's a bit of anger in the room. Everyone's being a little distrustful. The alcohol is flowing just a little too quickly. It's like the husband, what's his name? David is pouring the wine at the beginning, and he's just saying these. They go over that it's like a very expensive bottle of wine, and they're like, "We can't believe that you're just pouring this for just regular people like us. It's not even a special occasion." And the first thing he says is, "Well, we shouldn't save these things. You have to make like the day special, like every day. You can't take these things with you, type of thing." And I was like, "Oh no!" So it's some sort of like everyone's pouring out the dinner.
This man is pouring out his finest bottle of wine,
like $1 million
bottle.
People
he hasn't met. There's a reason.
Yeah, I was like, something's up with that. Nobody just does that. Like, if anything, you save that for like you and your significance special something. No offense to other people, but if you come to my house, you're drinking like 1 degree above well.
Like, just to make you feel special.
Yeah, I tried, but like, there's another level to this, and I love you, but like, there's another level to this. Unless it's like a SFL like member, like a parishioner, and then I would pour out a special wine for you, just in case you came to my house.
Not there. Not there.
But I also really, the setting is beautiful. The house in the hills, it's like a mid-century modern house, like a lot of like warm wood, and then the screen, like it's shot in like an almost sepia tone, so it looks very warm and inviting. Like it looks like you want to be in this house, like it's filled with like chatter and drinking, and it just looks like a good time that you'd want to be a part of. So it's like everything is to like kind of like lower your sense of alarm, which really adds, in my opinion, to the paranoia that Will is feeling, because in this like really warm, like like a dinner party with friends, it just goes too long, and it's just like everyone's drinking and everyone's laughing like so loudly. And then to have one character, our narrator, just be super paranoid, and like he's also experiencing the grief of being in the home that he shared with his wife and his child for the first time in those 2 years. So like every room has a memory of him and his son, and so you kind of like, you're definitely emoting with Will, but then it becomes more and more that like, oh God, should we not trust Will? Is Will the crazy one here? And like, because it does seem like the invitation at some points could be an invitation to an intervention for Will, which is what I kind of was leaning towards. I was like, "Ooh, that's an interesting twist on how to, have an intervention for someone, is to really like, I don't recommend that you liquor them up, and then intervene. on them, because that seems like a recipe for bad times. But I was kind of thinking like he's just going to go crazy after they try to spring an intervention on him. But then it seemed like they all didn't know Kira. So I was like, okay, so maybe that's not happening, because why would you bring your girlfriend to
your intervention?
Yeah,
no.
if she didn't plan it. Like,
it did seem a little bit, they tried to
throw you off.
Test that theory with us, because there were points where his friends who weren't involved in the invitation almost seemed like they were. Like, he's like, there's something not safe going on here, he said to one of his friends, and they're like, you are safe, you know, it's okay. And then another one of his friends said, we came, you know, me and my boyfriend came, you know, as support for you during this. So it's like, this was a dinner invitation, but they all knew that this was the first time in a couple of years that they had seen Tammy and David. And I'm not sure what the timeline is with the child dying. It kind of seems like they had all met David before. Like, this didn't seem like it was this the first time they had met? That part was a little weird.
No, I think that most of them had already met David, because Tammy met David in a grief group. So I think he'd already been like around the friends, like, but then it turned into a romantic thing while Tammy was still married to Will. And so that's why they got the divorce, which kind of made sense why it seemed so unfinished between Will and what's her face.
Yeah.
It just seems so unfinished, and it could just be because they lost a child together and experienced that grief probably even more powerfully when they are together than separate, because, you know, you look at the other person and you see your child.
Right.
But yeah, so I think that they'd met David before.
Okay, or at least so for like another layer of like, so they got together maybe during the marriage still. And that's what's so interesting, is like, a lot of times grief, you know, will tear couples apart. And in this instance, or especially grief of a child's death, or grief of a child, but then like David and Eden meet and then share in it and develop something. It's kind of fascinating. You can like develop something new, but you can't keep something, you know, going that was currently happening. And I'm sure a lot of it is, you know, mixed feelings about how it happened.
Yeah.
Which we don't totally figure out why or how.
Yeah. And I think, like, you know, if it were me, I could see that may happen, because as much as you want to move on from, you know, the trauma that's just taken place, and try to like forge forward and create, you know, whatever the rest of your life is going to look like, it must be extremely hard to be in the same place and with the same person who's also grieving and trying to find their way forward in the same way. Yeah, with, you know, because how do you turn the page on something as big as that, as a child's death or as a spouse's death even, never mind, that guy doesn't. I
guess you can't turn the page with the spouse's death while the dead spouse is still there.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking of the big guy, the Pruitt guy, and I was like, well, his wife died because of other reasons. He definitely murdered her. And so it must be different. I don't want to compare that to like the death of a child, because that's not the same. You murdered her pretty ruthlessly. But yeah, but I think that this is where kind of my interest in the movie kind of like changed. I was like, oh no, this is like one of those, like, I call them grief porn movies, much in the same vein of Hereditary and that really Bright movie, where I'm like, I see what's happening here.
Midsommar?
Midsommar. I was like, I see this now, and I'm a little sad. I was like, we can't just get like some ghost or ghoul, some zombie, some anything to come in and just like give us a good fright. And I was like, no, we're gonna stay in this deeply emotional place and explore these people's trauma. And I'm like, God damn it.
Sad porn.
You got me again. This grief porn or emotional porn, like it's like the exact opposite of a romance novel. Like it engages you in like, in my opinion, in all the same ways as like a romance novel, where you become like almost too invested in the characters' like mental health and well-being. And then, you know, to throw in the fact that we think that Will might be the crazy one, and that like maybe there's some alternative universe where David and Eden are actually sane, and then you just get a little confused, because you can see how people would fall into this type of a cult, because as soon as you can make the real world, in quotations, seem insane, the more sane this cult seems. And I'm like, I don't like this. I don't like this thought experiment. I don't like it. I don't like my mind toyed with in this way. But yeah, so I would put this in the same, if you like Hereditary and Midsommar, you're going to like The Invitation. It hits all the same, not the same notes, but similar notes in that way.
I like that, emotional porn. And now I realize I watch a lot of emotional porn. I have what you might call an emotional porn habit.
You have an emotional porn addiction.
I mean,
I would die if there was like a tube site for that, like emotion porn tube, where you just get to watch like 10-minute snippets of movies like this, or stories.
Emotional Pornhub.
Yeah.
And it's just like tales of loss.
Yeah, maybe that's like the Hallmark Channel. Maybe it's more a Lifetime vibe.
People, it's just testimonials.
Yeah. It's like every 3 a.m. ad about like some beach body thing that's changed someone's life. Like I just
oh my god, I haven't laughed that hard in a while. That is so funny. And it's totally something that would make money. Like
people would watch it if there was an on-demand like feelings tube, like feelings hub.
Oh my god. And it's just like, yeah, people just recounting misery and trauma, because what like I think of it, you know, like some shows are like lifestyle porn, like The Undoing with Nicole Kidman was like full on lifestyle porn. Like it was like a whodunit, but then there was just like a lot of great clothes and furniture and real estate, where it was just like, oh hell yeah. And you just like got swept up into it. And yeah, it feels like this kind of stuff has the same feel, and this is what lulls me. This is what makes me, this is the type of stuff I want to relax.
What? That you found this movie relaxing? You weren't like, you didn't feel tense or anything?
Well, see, I do feel tension, but tension isn't a negative to me when watching something. So like, it's not like I'm like meditative, like during the experience. It's just that like the tension that I feel watching these things it could, rather than relaxes me, I could see it more as a distraction. Like it doesn't bring me to a meditative place, but it engages me enough where it's a full distraction. And that might be why I go to stuff like that when I'm trying to, you know, it's my form of escapism. So it's not chilling me out, but it's having me like focused on something else. Whereas a comedy won't really have me focused like that. Does that make sense? Like,
yeah. I feel like I get the opposite, or maybe not opposite, an adjacent. I feel like movies like this and experiences like this make my mind work faster, because I'm trying to outgame what's happening in front of me. Like I need to know like any sort of like which is just like goes to my personality also. Like I don't like what's happening, so I need to like be able to predict what's going to happen. So like better example would be Midsommar, and I was like, I figured this out very quickly. And so the rest of it was kind of boring. And I was like, I didn't really like this. Because I had already worked so hard to figure it out in like the first quarter, in like the first third of the movie, that I'm like, I can't have this type of suspense. I know my training.
You relied upon your training. You know what? Truly, Tessa, I feel like your training is what like creates that drive to figure out what's happening in these movies. Whereas I don't have that training as, you know, a Caucasian female. So I'm like, let's just let it ride. Let's see what happens, because I don't have the, like, I do have the training as a woman of self-protection, but I still have that like blanket of like white safety, right?
Well, the end, like, you know, you know, the police will show up and you'll be assumed the victim and not the perpetrator type thing, or, you know, they'll just show up. Like, you know, depending on where you live in the Hollywood Hills, I'm sure they're going to show up, you know, randomly in Chicago at like, you know, 11 p.m. when I'm watching this. You know, they might take their time, go around the block a couple times. But it's so funny because we were talking earlier and we were just talking about how the final girl is the Black woman, who I'm just like, girl, how are you still even in this house? Like, after the first surprise visitor, I would have been like, Will, we gotta go. She looked crazy. She got crazy in the eyes. And then as soon as she pops onto the screen, the second, like, the conversation shifts just slightly to Charles Manson. And I was like, nah, I gotta go. Yeah, this was fun. We'll do it again real soon. You'll never see me around these people again. Like, no. And then they're like, oh, well, and then there was a home invasion in the neighborhood. And I was like, I thought this was safe. Like, no, I gotta go. Bye. I'll see you guys later. We'll do this over Skype. Like, no.
So about those red flags. So there were a couple. Like, there was a knock or the doorbell rang, and then apparently someone was at the door and David just shooed them away. And then he came back and they're like, who was it? And he said, like, I don't know, made up some excuse. Like, there were a couple people lost or something. And I was wondering now, looking back at it, was that to invitation members, or were those two people who had escaped an invitation home? Right. So there's things like that, like who we don't find out who it was, and then also there's a girl, Claire, who does end up leaving, but it is unclear what happens to Claire. And we would assume that Claire's probably dead somewhere.
Yeah. But I think it's safe to assume that no one made it out. I think it's safe to assume that Claire did make it out of that driveway. Especially when you see Pruitt run after her. And I'm like, yeah, he punched a woman to death. And so I think Claire. His wife. He punched his wife, not just a random woman. Right. Yeah.
And it was just one of these things where it does show how difficult it is to leave situations, because imagine you're Claire. She has like built up the confidence to say, I'm out, I want to go. But like every time someone tries to leave, there's something that attaches or keeps them in somehow. So Pruitt says, I parked behind you. I have to move my car, which makes sense that he came last, because in that sense, he would have parked behind everybody. At least I'm guessing. So he would have to go out with someone.
Yeah.
And then she's getting
Which I assume is part of the plan. Like,
exactly.
Have one additional guest come at the end so they can block them in the driveway and like nobody can. Yeah.
But then Claire wants to leave. So then he's like, oh, well, I have to move my car. So then in order to leave, she has to go out with this guy who just admitted to killing his wife, but he's at your friend's place as a guest. So then this is where the My Favorite Murder podcast, they're always like, fuck politeness, because like at that point, I mean, maybe chances are none of them or barely any of them were going to make it out. But her next thing that she could have done is asked someone to come with her, or voiced, some sort of like apprehension, like, listen. And the fact that you'd even have to say something like this, no offense, listen, but I just heard your story. I'm not comfortable walking outside just with you. I think you could understand why. But they're in a situation where it's very hard to say that. And so she could have asked someone else to come with her. Then they'd get the pressure. No, no, no. What do you mean? You're fine. Okay, that's our friend, you know, like whatever they did, there was another reason or another excuse for them to not be able to exit the way they wanted to. And they were so entrenched because of the people hosting it. It was so fucked. And obviously the people hosting it, especially David, he pushed every time. Every single time Will said something, David pushed back. And they never took no for an answer. You could never say no in any way, shape, or form, like without getting some pushback. And then obviously it all came to light what was going on when they were all about to drink something poured out. And I'm like, why are we all having the same drink? And why are we having a toast like mid dinner party? This wasn't like before the dinner. This is like in the middle of hanging out. Okay, we're just going to switch and have a tiny glass of something all together. And David, starts hitting the glasses because he saw a video on a laptop and it looked like it was like a suicide pact sort of video from the Invitation's leader. And then after he hits the glasses, the Manson girl she wilds out. And even then, people were still like, whoa, Will, because Will shoved her off. And there was still this feeling like Will was the crazed one. Until finally, David just shoots someone. So he just
he shot Miguel. I know. I love Miguel. He was my favorite character.
It was terrible.
So funny.
But it was just kind of like, even after that girl wilded out and said, you're ruining everything, there was still this like, how could you, Will, like shove her off you so hard, right? And she's bleeding. And it's like, it took David to shoot Miguel for people to 100% get what was going on.
Yeah.
Like it took the shots and it just was like, oh my God, like that's wild.
Yeah. I thought it was super interesting that this movie has the most Karens that I've ever seen on film in one place. I was like, this is the highest echelon of Karen that exists, I think, in the world. Like this is almost an aspirational level of Karening, that you can do this much damage, this much destruction, and still be given benefit of the doubt. And I was like, wow. I bet if the police actually showed up to this, David or Will would have been the one arrested somehow, or the black girl somehow.
Oh yeah, or Miguel shot in the corner.
Yes.
You're right, because between Tammy and Manson.
Yeah, Eden is like, I just cannot. I mean,
so many Karens.
I'm just like, I wonder if people don't even see that they're Karening right now. Like you're using your privilege and your position in this moment to keep someone in your home, to guilt, because Eden tries to guilt, I think her name's Claire. Is it Claire? Into staying. And I was like, stop. That was an attempted Karening. You should be cited. Don't try to stop. She said she wanted to leave. Let the girl leave. I try my best to just like let people's answers be their answers, and not try to, coerce people into doing, things that I want them to do, like, oh, stay just 15 more minutes, that type of thing. Like, just stop, because it's not helpful. And it's hard enough to say no in some scenarios, or I want to leave, or I want to do something different. And you don't need me, a friend or whatever, making you doubt yourself. The subtle gaslighting. If you don't want to do this, like.
No, totally. And it's interesting because it's everyone's own responsibility to uphold your own boundaries. If you say no, like no means no, or I can't help you, or I can't do that right now. And everyone's guilty of it, right? I mean, at least the way I was raised, people are constantly talking you into doing something. Like everyone wants you to do something for them, help them out, et cetera, and saying no is rude. because like, why wouldn't you do that? But then I'd like this message to go out to everyone out there who doesn't take the no for an answer. And I know that I'm guilty of it too. Like everybody does it. But like, just to recognize that like, it's exhausting to then have to say it a couple of times. And then eventually, yeah, it might be the other person's fault for eventually giving in. But like, maybe you get what you want, but you also get resentment. So you might get the thing that you wanted them to do, but that thing, that interaction is like locked away in that person's experience with you at that point, you know, and it just, and, you know, it can go away after a number of interactions that aren't like that. But like, if you get too many of those where the person's giving in just to like get you to stop, which again, no, they don't have to give in. I get it. But like, just hear the message. Just stop though. It's not helping your relationship anymore with the person, but I think people do it anyways.
Yeah. And, you know, coercion is coercion is coercion is coercion. Like, recognize that like you were violating someone's boundary and take the no, take the L. Like, it's fine. If you, as the, you know, the person who's wanting someone to do something with you, if you need to make a new friend in order to like have the experience that you want with someone or whatever it is, like, it's just a no. It's a hard no, guys. It's 2021. We got to start recognizing a no, a subtle no, even a redirect as
even,
a no.
Even like, favors, you know? And yeah, like, I think if you ask, I mean, it's hard to take just no for an answer. I think a lot of people have a tough time and people are persistent. And so even if you just ask one more time, okay, fine. There's your one more time. Don't go past that. Don't try and ask it in a different way an hour later. God, it's insane. Just everyone's shit is more important. That's just truly, like, in this situation, it's violent, but it pops up in like everyday little things all the time.
Yeah. I know. And then I kind of feel bad because I do have some people who I would just like badger, like, especially like my sisters. I'd be like, let's just do it. Let's just do it. And now I feel like they're waiting for me to do that. And I'm like, oh, it kind of makes me feel bad that they're just waiting for me to keep asking. Right. I was like, yeah, I really did badger you a lot to do a lot of the things that I wanted to do. But, you know, in my head, I'm like, but did they turn out great? Yes, they did. But that's beside the point.
I'm guilty of it too. Yeah, I'm guilty of it too. And it's just kind of recognizing it. But like, even if you're guilty of it, it just feels so terrible being on the other end. So like, I've been thinking about boundaries, working on boundaries. And in addition to, and I don't always do it, I tend to say, if I'm at a place where the answer is, I don't know, like if I don't know yet, because a lot of times I won't know boundaries of mine are invaded until they've been invaded a bunch. Like sometimes I'm just kind of unaware at times what they are. And it could be just little things. And if my answer's not automatically no, a lot of times rather than I don't know, I'll go with yes. Because I'm a people pleaser. And I've been trying to pay more attention to that. And I do still do it. But I've gained more of an awareness of it. And like, if I sense that I did it a couple of times, I'm like, okay, just be aware of how that makes you feel and how you want to handle it next time. But I also try to pay attention to how I react to other people's no's, which is another piece of it where it's like, it's very, you know, it's one thing to look at, what's my yes, what's my no, when am I saying yes when I don't mean it? And then I'm kind of annoyed and blah, 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 blah. What do I do when someone says no to me? You know, like chances are, you know, I might not be doing the exact same thing that's done to me, but I'm doing a version of it. It's just, anyways, but these people, I mean, this was a serious not taking no. Okay, this was, was like, this isn't like, hey, can you help me bring in the groceries? No, I'm sorry, I can't right now. This is like, I want to leave because I'm troubled and I'm uncomfortable. No, don't do that.
Yeah, or the drinks. They're pushing drinks on everyone. So like, I mean, a lot of people are saying yes, but Will starts out saying no. And so it's so easy, or it's, you know, watching this, it is so easy to erode people's like willpower to just be like, because he says no, I think the first couple times that he's offered drinks. And then by the dinner, he's taking on the drinks, which
It's
I think
peer
is,
pressure. And
yeah.
I mean, we're like, oh, I don't succumb to peer pressure. That's only for teens drinking Natty Light. Like, that's not what this is. Peer pressure. This is
Mm-hmm.
totally peer pressure, and everyone is doing it. And it just, Claire, I was so proud of her. And of course, in doing it, she's still apologizing, right? She's like, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. And I get it, right? Like, I
Yeah.
get it. I
That's
don't
how
think
I
there
would
was any,
leave that dinner.
totally.
How I would be a Claire. I'd be like, I'm sorry. I know like you've planned for me to be here. You've prepared all this food. We haven't seen each other in so long, but I honestly I have to go. Like after the film, like I like everyone have just this, have a curiosity about religion and quote unquote cults and things like that. The esoteric. So I would have been here for the film, but I hadn't picked up on all of the other little subtle creepiness. Like the locking of the door from the inside would have been the creepiest thing to me if I would have seen it. But also like Will would have been probably the reason why I would have had to go. And I'm like, something's off with Will. And
Interesting.
with or without the rest of the cult like behavior, I would have been like, something's off with Will in a way that is distressing to me. And we're not all addressing it as a group because he's bringing up all these things that he feels is wrong with the world as he sees it, but nobody's bringing up what's wrong with Will as they see it because Will is not acting normal. And so I would have been like, something's wrong with Will.
But he's not acting normal because of the situation, but that's because we know.
Yeah, because we know a little bit more than even Will does. But if I was Claire in the room and I had tried to talk to Will and he's not settling down, he's becoming more and more agitated.
Yeah.
Plus the addition of these two new characters who I don't know. That creep ass girl. Like as soon as she showed up, I would have been like, no, I gotta go, guys. This is a personality type that I can't handle.
She was
like this
sexy.
is a no.
She was like sexy little girl.
No.
Do you know what I mean? Like very childlike and like pulling on her skirt and like I ran naked in the jungle. I was like
type
terrible.
of person. I think that is the scariest type of person.
Kind of infantile.
I think that's the most active Karen is that girl. Because she's using all of this as a very obvious facade. This like it's gross, and I'm like, and then it's
activate status Karen.
Exactly. Go status, like go police, go cell phone. Like, yeah, I can't with her. And then the Pruitt guy was really creepy, and after that story, so like all of these would have been my red flags. Like, so that's when I'd leave. But how I'd leave would be, I think, the more interesting part, because I think I'd have to go to the dramatic because I don't have a reason to leave. It's not like I could be like, oh yeah, my kids have soccer in the morning, gotta go. So I think I would have to go to something like much more dramatic, like fake an injury, like, well, in this house, but might just move the timeline up, but like, make a drink and then like nick myself and be like, no, I have this special stuff at home that's like, I just don't want to scar to form, and like I just have to go, and like, I'm sorry for ruining the night, but just like something that's like immediate, but then it would have like a hurried like response. Like I could just be like, because yeah. So that would be my probably my go-to. What would you do? What would you?
I mean, I would have left after the death video. That's when I would have been like, okay, like not cool. But how would I have gone about leaving? I feel like I would have absolutely not been okay with just confrontation. I would have made up some wild excuse and just would have made up an excuse and apologized profusely, even though like I didn't have to.
Yeah. I mean, it was so good of them to not have the cell phone service, because that would have been my go-to, to be like, oh, I just got a message from blah, 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 I have to go. But because the service was so spotty, you'd have to be something that happened in the house that would force you to leave, would be my thought. But I do agree. And like another major red flag for me is like the cadence in which people speak. Mm-hmm. Like growing up in the church, like when I meet people who in their normal speech sound like pastors, and it's really just a cadence to your speech, but Will did it David did it like the entire time, that like very, it's supposed to be calming, and then I'm sure it is for some people, but that calming, pastoral, ministering, like
Right.
it's just a cadence to your speech. And you know, if you're church people, you just know what it is. And like, it is the biggest red flag for me, because you're selling me something.
Yes.
I don't know what it is in this moment, but I'm being sold something.
And you're selling it to
up.
me because you are you are what you're selling.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of talk and the eye contact that was happening there, is like the person's an embodiment of what they're selling, but they're like not only a salesperson, they're also putting themselves in some sort of superior position to you, like they have a secret, and you know, they've figured it out, and they're willing to let you in on it.
Yeah.
And but they have to talk that way to keep you, like, why do you have to be that calm telling me something? The thing should sell itself. So whatever it is should just sell itself. And that's my feeling in general. So if you're trying to like coax me into something or pressure me into something,
Yeah,
then what you're selling isn't worth it.
Yeah.
Or you're selling me death.
Yeah. The vibe is off. The vibe was off with David. I would have been like, ugh. Like, in order of like their biggest red flags, it goes crazy hippie girl. Number one, I was like, she is definitely down to murder. Like, I just see it in you.
For sure.
Number two is David, because it seems like if anyone was a mastermind to what's going on, it would have been David. And then 3 would be Pruitt. And then 4 would be Eden, because Eden, even though she is complicit, she is at least remorseful. If she seems the most brainwashed, like she was just the most anxious to get rid of, which is just such a horrible way to think of, like, of grief, of something that you just get rid of, like to shed grief. But and I'm like, it's not, you can't shed this. It's just you know, an abrupt shift in reality. Like, it is what it is. But you handle it the way you handle it. So I felt like if anyone could be redeemed, it was Eden. But then, you know, she makes her choices. So
and you got to live with your choices in your pure white dress, Garden of Eden, like all that shit was just okay. So strong female leads. Now, I guess Eden is supposed to be the lead, but you know, she comes up as one of the people starring in it, but she really doesn't even speak that much.
No, she's a looming figure. But in terms of our criteria of being top billed, nailed it. Does she move the plot along? Does she move the plot along?
Well, she is the reason why a lot of them are willing to come over, I think, right? Like, if this were just David, would all of those people have come to their place? I doubt it.
I mean, maybe. It seems like he's been kind of AWOL also. I wasn't sure if everyone had just not seen Eden, or if everyone had not seen each other in 2 years.
Right.
Like, this group only meets up, like, you know, Eden and Will at some point were like the linchpin for this group, and once they became unraveled, everyone just kind of scattered. Or if everyone had just not seen Eden in 2 years.
Right. I feel like they hadn't seen David or Eden. I mean, she pushes it along a bit, like she has a hand in trying to keep people around and is sort of parroting what David's saying. And she does kind of get in the way when people want to leave in her own, like, sexy sad in her own sexy sad emotional porn way, which is terrifying. She was so very sad and so very sexual, and it was like very, very uncomfortable for me.
I'm gonna say no, that she doesn't really impact. Well, I mean, she is the inciting, like, she is the inciting event, is that Eden's back, and so everyone's coming to see Eden. But
Right.
I just don't think the movie is about her. Even though she is top billed, I don't think that the movie is about her. I'd say that this is Will's movie, and we're experiencing all of this through Will's point of view.
Right.
And so whether or not, I mean, she is the reason why they're all in this home at this time, but like, I'm trying to think of Eden's actions and whether or not they move the plot forward. They make her actions make Will more paranoid, which moves the plot forward and like furthers his like hysteria, but like because she ends up shooting him. So I guess
Yeah, I mean, she does impact the plot in that sense. She does shoot him and then shoot herself. But it's weird. She doesn't seem to move it while it's happening, but I think her presence is kind of what moves it, which is just very bizarre to me. But
yeah, I think that Eden's role doesn't, for me, she's not an SFL. I think she does display agency, but again, it's always weird when I feel like you have agency, but you're not impacting the plot. So you're just like doing erroneous actions, which I think is more suited to how the film views femininity than anything else, as weak and erroneous, like definitely weak, definitely passive, definitely I feel like all the male characters just put upon the female characters, you know, doing their best in subtle and unsubtle ways to remove their agency. So I'm like, you know, credit to the women who do actually make choices. I forget the Asian woman character who actually dies, but she's the one who I think displays the least amount of agency. What's her name? Gina. I thought that she was such an odd character because she seemed like such a smart woman, to also be like so willing to go along with everything. Like nothing raised a red flag for that character. Everything was like permissible. She gave no fucks, and I was like, yeah, you are amongst friends, but like, girl, have some self-preservation about you. Stop doing everything that is suggested to you.
I know she would say no just for a second and then go along with everything.
Yeah. And I was like, it makes sense for this short backstory that they gave this character, and that she was like, you know, like a wild child and in college and maybe her early 20s. And so it fit that she would be most likely the one to die. One of the people to die. A lot of people died.
Oh yeah, it was also very much like, if you are not, you know, like if you're a sinful woman, you were going to die.
Yeah.
Right. But then again, Claire wasn't necessarily sinful. It just seemed like, and I'm saying sinful like in the eyes of this movie, because it does have, at least the naming of Eden definitely has like very religious overtone. Like she's looking for the Garden of Eden, or she is presenting what that is. But her, I don't know, it just seemed like, oh, party girl, Gina, well, she's got to go. She did coke.
Yeah. She's beyond redemption. But yeah, I did like the naming of the character of Eden as in something that was beautiful and lush that is now lost. And I was like, I see what you did there. Good on you. But also yeah. But yeah, did you have any SFLs for the movie, or any thoughts on the femininity masculinity paradox that is before us?
I mean, honestly, I wanted to find Eden as an SFL, but I think maybe I'll give her a tiny hat for moving, because I do think she's top billed and she does display agency. I think she impact more just her existence but she's kind of like a plot device. Yeah. Actually, now that I think of it, because it really isn't like her individual decision making throughout the film. That's not what moves it along. It's just what happened to her before. Like we don't see her grow at all or go through anything. Yeah, I don't think there's not an SFL. The closest one to an SFL, and she's just not top billed, is Will's girlfriend.
Yeah, Kira.
Kira. Like, what the fuck? She's just not in enough, right? Like her actions are that of an SFL though.
Mm-hmm.
At least she
Yeah.
starts like
I appreciate her saying
down.
what she she says what she thinks. She kind of confronts Will when she's like, you're acting real crazy. I need you to get it together, or we need to leave. The only thing I didn't like about Kira is that she didn't just leave herself. Like, you can stay here with your crazy friends. I'm leaving.
Right. I know.
I was like, you know these people, you know their personalities. This just isn't for me. It's like it's a Friday night, dude. I've been working all week. I gotta go. Like, we just hit a wolf or something, and I'm feeling really down. just down. I'm remembering my training and everything in me, and everything that my upbringing has instilled in me says, leave this place.
Training is kicking in. Yeah, I didn't like that she stayed, for sure. I was like, ooh.
Yeah.
But then again, as someone who stayed, you're like, this person drove me. Like, you kind of come up with these reasons for like, well, they took me out to dinner, and like, all right, I'll like listen to what these people have to say. Like, it's way easier than we think.
Oh yeah. I agree. I don't think it's easy to leave, but I think if you're getting this many red flags, guys, it's okay for you to leave. Strong female lead approved your decision to leave this dinner party, this scenario, 100%.
Just that video, like, I just like, that was truly when it was like, you guys, some bullshit,
some absolute bullshit.
Fucking bullshit.
But guys, we would be oh, go ahead.
No, just some fucking absolute bullshit, that video.
It was terrifying, and I hope even their reactions in that moment weren't big enough to me. You just watched a woman like seemingly volunteer to die or something. That was so strange.
Yeah, and now looking at it, she didn't necessarily have cancer. Maybe she's just someone who at that retreat volunteered, to do that, show them. Or maybe at that retreat, a bunch of people died. And why were they allowed to leave and then get other people to die? I'm curious as to why they weren't dead after having gone to Mexico. Like, I just don't understand.
I'm curious on why it's like a murder cult. Like, what is murdering someone doing for you? Like, I can see a suicide cult because you need to release your, spirit into whatever so that it can be transported wherever. But why are you murdering others? And why are people close to you? Like, why are you just, is it a transference of trauma? Is it like, if you can't live with this for, cause that's what it seemed like when Eden slapped that guy in the kitchen. It's like, oh, you caused a negative emotion in me, I have to immediately release it type thing. But these are your friends. Like, why wouldn't you invite like random like PTA people over? No offense, PTA people, but like people who you may not like actually like, or
So I thought maybe it was because like they had shared in the grief, so they were going to release them also. But yeah, the reason for murder Suey, why wasn't it just Suey?
Yeah, puzzled. I'm puzzled. I'm curious if anyone picked up what was actually going on with just like the cult aspect of things, because I don't know, maybe it was explained in that little video that Will was watching, but I was like tuning in and out, and I was like, just get to the murdering already. But then the very last scene, when you zoom out and you see like the red lights in all of LA and the sirens and all of that, you're just like, oh God.
Oh, I know.
It's everywhere.
That was fantastic. When I was like, oh, so what? They're all just in LA? This is just like,
I'm assuming it's like murder night. Like, it's the pre-purge. Like, this was the first purge that set it all off. And they're like, that was a great idea. It was effective. And then, fast forward to the Purge series, like 20 years into the future. The lone survivor of this fright night turns into the founding fathers from the Purge series. So it was nice to see a prequel.
I mean, yeah, it was terrifying. And femininity, it was just very much about the men, right? They were the ones who it was really about. And their story, and of course the person who's strongly opposing it is the man, and women, the women in the cult were just overtly sexual and seemingly submissive, and everyone else was just kind of going along with it. Yeah, it didn't really give me a positive message about femininity. I mean, this was written by two men. It seemed like the women were it was women as men see them, for sure.
It
Rather
seemed to
than
like
women in their own
legitimize.
role.
Yeah, I feel like the women like legitimize the cult in a weird way, where it's like, well, if women will do it, like if the more genteel, you know, of the sexes is allowing and accepting of this, then it must be okay. And it's not. No, not at all.
Never
not
okay,
okay, guys. Not okay. Check out your cults. Do a quick little Google search before you join, before you give them all your money. Unless, and I'd really just like to take this opportunity to invite you guys to the Church of SFL. Yeah, unless it's us, because we really do appreciate your membership and your money. So if you wanted to go ahead and donate to us, just show your support in any way.
So I know this feels like a little bit of a mindfuck, talking about how cults are bad and scary and you should always leave, but ours isn't like that. We have a true message.
Yeah, cult is such a strong term, is what I'd also like to point out. We're just a member. This is a members only group,
an organization.
Yeah, we are just friends supporting friends with the purpose of uplifting women. And so if you're down with like goals like that, with vibes like that, then I think this could be a really good place for you.
Oh God. So what would you rate this? Oh my God, we didn't even say the criteria. Well, fuck it. You guys knew the criteria.
Yeah, I mentioned it. I mentioned it.
Did you?
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. I would give this, it was a fun watch. I would give this, I enjoyed it. 3 out of 5 dead coyotes.
Oh.
Yeah. There you go. Because that was the premonition at the very beginning that something was going to happen.
Oh.
What about you? What would you give it?
I would say like the same, like, 2.5 to 3. I'm going to say glasses of Chianti because they didn't eat the bodies, but they may have, had they survived. Who knows what they did with the bodies? That is a Silence of the Lambs reference if you are the worst and you didn't get it. Guys, get your movie watching up. But yeah, I mean, it's a well-told story, a beautiful film. It's not my cup of tea in terms of like what I'm looking for in order to be scared. And I think that like this is in the same vein of like Hereditary, Midsommar, even the Haunting of Hill House type of scary. Like there are a couple like little jumps, but it's not, you can go to bed easily just knowing that you're not a part of a cult. So if you're looking to be a little scared and then go to sleep, this would be the perfect like Sunday night thing. I'm a little scared, you snuggle up a little closer to someone, but like I'm gonna go to sleep.
Right. You could definitely sleep because you're like, that would never happen to me.
Yeah. I'm definitely not in a cult. But then the little insidious thought gets into your head that I'm not, but what if my friends are?
Right. and then that's how you get in it.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Thank you, everybody. And truly, if you also have an addiction to emotional porn, reach out to us on you can find us on Instagram at Strong Female Pod.
Yeah, or tweet it out. You gotta let the world know that you're not alone, and that and that you exist, and that you need to be not just seen but felt. And you can tweet at us. We're SFL_Chicago on Twitter.
Yeah, and rate, review, subscribe on Apple Podcast or wherever you pod. Um, you know, there we are. All right. Well, I
Yeah.
think that's it, guys.
That is it, guys.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye. I received my own invitation once, and it was not the same situation, clearly, because I'm here to tell the tale. But I received, and I don't know if I've talked about this on the pod, I might have, but I received an invitation to an intro slash welcome session to Landmark. Have you ever heard of Landmark?
I think you may have talked about it before.
Okay.
But no, like in the regular world, I'm assuming it's a self-help course, much like not Scientology, but the one that was a sex cult with the ginger ale girls.
Don't know.
You know what I'm talking
Oh,
about?
wait, what?
Was Steve Ranieri that one?
Nexium.
Nexium. Yeah, the ginger ale girls are the ones. The
Ginger
Seagram's
ale.
girls.
Oh
Ginger
my
ale,
God.
ginger ale.
So,
Yeah, those.
well, I don't know. I mean, it could be another Nexium. I didn't see that part, but it is kind of a spin-off from Est from the 70s and Landmark, which was like a self-help group that sort of competed with Scientology, and had been known and had gotten a lot of was getting bad press about their like emotionally abusive methods, like attack therapy, tearing people down, etc. And so the technology of Est, which I'm going to throw in quotes technology because I'm not clear on what that means, like the course or the curriculum, was repackaged and rebranded as Landmark, like a softer Est, but Landmark is owned by the brother of the man who created Est. Well, okay, so I get invited by a coworker. This was maybe 7 or 8 years ago. And she says she goes to the self-help thing and it's really interesting. It helped her after her divorce. Why don't you come with me sometime? And her and I got along really well. And I was like, like self-help, I mean, my jam, I'll do it. But I didn't Google it. Now I Google everything. This was time before I didn't Google things before.
You're just trusting. You were.
I did. I mean, this is a woman I worked with day to day, and that's how it can happen, right? You're just like, okay. So I went, and looking back, it's all very, very strange, right? But so we go to dinner, and we have dinner, and then we go to this just office building in downtown Philly, and we like take the elevator up on whatever floor. We get out and we walk to a table. It's basically like a conference. It looks like it's a conference. Someone's sitting there at the welcome table, right? They're going to take your name and give you a name tag, etc. Instantly, the first thing I noticed was this man is not breaking eye contact with me in a way that like just made something in me like, whoa, you know what I mean? Why is this man not breaking eye contact with me? No one looks in people's eyes the entire time they're talking to them. Your eyes dart left, like, because you're thinking, right? Like your eyes will dart left or right. Sometimes you're lying. Sometimes you're using creative, like different parts of your brain. But no, this man just zeroed in and made eye contact with me the entire time. And I was like, okay. And then I went to the bathroom and I came out and I had a cup of coffee from the restaurant, a paper cup, and I wanted to bring it in to this really dreary looking conference room. Like, who gives a shit? Like, I would like to finish my coffee. They made a really big deal about me bringing it in. And I'll never forget that either. He was like, no, I don't. And I was like, huh? And I don't like useless rules. Like for no, like, what does this do to you? Because I'm going to hold on to it. Maybe you don't trust that I'll throw it out. But like, if you're this strict about it, then maybe I'm just going to be one of the few people that's difficult enough to be like, I'm going to bring my coffee in. So there isn't going to be a lot to clean up. I don't remember if I brought it in or not, but I remember that piece where I was like, very bizarre. Why would this person not want me to just have a liquid when usually when you're in conferences, they want you to be comfortable. They have water out. Like, you know what I mean? They're trying to keep you comfortable.
And
so
in the
like,
room.
Okay. And in the room. So that was my next thing. And I was like, okay. And we sat down and people were going up to the podium and kind of telling personal stories. And it sounded like, and how Landmark had helped them. And I don't think I had like an agenda sheet. I wasn't given anything to like tell me what was going on, at least as far as I remember, like this will be the in blah, 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 blah. And so it was just very much like, all right, I'm just listening to these people. It had kind of like an AA feel to it, for any of you who have been in the rooms of AA. And I have, and it just, yeah, it had that kind of feel. So then it definitely felt like an AA meeting when my coworker next to me asks me, she introduces me, and then I'm told to stand up and say something about myself, not warned at all, right? That this is going to happen, but I see it happening to a couple other people. And I was like, oh shit. And like, before I could even think of how I didn't want to do this, I like had to say something about myself. And I don't know, I was just like, hi. I don't know, like, I mean, I like the color blue, like, what, I'm here. And I was like, okay. And it didn't feel, you know, distressing yet, but it was like something was keyed in, like in me, that people were communicating with me a different way. So then, and this is all coming back to the invitation and whether I'd leave. I'm trying to paint a very descriptive picture of how I might not have. So then they say, okay, all the new people like got sent to a room, no windows, and no bathroom breaks, no announced bathroom breaks. And I don't think anyone even asked to go. And then just a hard sell. Started with the concepts, pushing, and then all of a sudden, then began pushing. So if you want more, you can attend our retreat. It's $400, getting people to sign up then and there. So that is the part where it wasn't all the weirdness. It wasn't the lack of liquids. It wasn't the bathroom breaks. All that shit was super weird to me. And I knew that it was bizarre that like they spoke to us. Definitely, it felt like hours. It could have very well been like an hour and a half. It felt like 2 hours or more with no breaks. And for me to notice that there wasn't a break, I think it was a couple of hours. And it was the money. It was the money. I was like, wait, what? I'm like, I need to think about this. Can't you just sign up online? You know, it sounded interesting. They want you to go to a retreat and then you decide. And the retreat's called the Forum. And the guy's like, well, don't you think you're worth it? You know, like that kind of like, you're worth it. And I was like, I'm like, to me, I'm not worth $400 right now. Like I didn't have kind of cash like that to just, so my cheapness is really, that was the final straw for me, not all the other weird stuff.